to the Haunted Legion. If you're new here, I'm glad you found us. You've just stepped into a place where the past ain't silent and the dead don't always stay where they're laid. And if you've been with us before, welcome back, friend. You already know, some stories don't fade. They just wait for someone to listen. Tonight, I've got 5 true tales. 5 encounters pulled straight from the American South, from men who've stood alone in the dark, on ground soaked in blood, silence, and memory. We'll start in Gettysburg, where shadows still cross the stone walls under moonlight, then head to Chickamauga, where something ancient walks the trees. We'll pass through the woods at Shiloh, down the river bluffs of Vicksburg, and finally into Cold Hollow, a quiet place with a name that don't show up on many maps, but where the voices never stopped whispering. These stories come from park rangers, people who don't scare easy, but what they saw out there, it changed them. So before we begin, make sure you subscribe, ring the bell so you don't miss the next tale, and hit that like button if you believe the dead might still have something to say. Now settle in and listen close. Because tonight, we walk the battlefield, and not everyone we meet is among the living. They say the dead don't walk, that once a man draws his last breath, he's gone, forever. I used to believe that. Back before Gettysburg, back before I saw things that rattled my bones and chilled the very marrow inside me. Now, I ain't so sure. My name's Eli Mercer. I've been a park ranger here at Gettysburg National Military Park going on 11 years. I've walked them fields sun up to sundown. I know every dip in the land, every silent monument standing like a stone sentinel. I've told 1,000 school kids and history buffs the stories of the brave boys who fought and fell here. But there's a side to this battlefield they don't put in the books. A side I only came to know one night in late October, when the veil between the living and the dead thinned just enough for me to see through. It was a Friday night, bitter cold. Sky hanging low like lead, no stars, just a crescent moon peeking through clouds like it didn't want to see what was about to happen. We were short-staffed that weekend. I drew the late patrol, last ranger on duty, making sure the grounds were clear before locking the gates. I took my flashlight and headed out from the visitor center, boots crunching over gravel, the wind nipping at my collar. My breath was fogging in front of me, and the dark, it just felt heavier than usual. I started out past Devil's Den, that boulder-strewn outcrop where so many boys fell, their blood seeping into the cracks like ink on paper. Folks say that ground never stopped groaning. I ain't one for ghost stories, never was. But I'm telling you straight, the air was wrong that night, too still, like the whole land was holding its breath. I was halfway up the trail toward Little Round Top when I heard it. Boots, marching, rhythmic, heavy, unmistakable. I froze. Now this ain't no open tourist night. No reenactors were scheduled. I was the only one out there. I made damn sure of that. I flicked off my flashlight, waited, listened. The sound grew louder, coming from the tree line to my left. Boots on packed dirt, metal jangling, like cartridge boxes swinging from belts. And then, voices, low, muted, men talking, arguing, praying, prying, crying. I backed up slow, heart pounding, breath shallow, then just ahead in the moonlight, I saw them. Shadowy shapes moving through the trees, gray coats, slouch hats, rifles. One had a bugle hanging from his chest. They weren't walking, they were marching. Silent and solemn like they knew where they were headed. Like they'd done it before, like they were doing it again, and right in the middle of them was a boy, no more than 16, pale, trembling, his eyes wide, mouth open like he wanted to scream, but no sound come out. And then he looked straight at me, straight through me, and whispered, "Don't let me die again." I stumbled back, breath catching in my throat, and just like that, they were gone, dissolved into the mist, like they'd never been there. But I felt it. In my bones, like the ground still remembered them, still held the echo of their march. I should have left right then, called it in, said there was something wrong with the comms or weather or hell, made up any excuse to leave. But I didn't. I was raised on pride and bad choices, so I kept walking. I made my way down toward the wheat field, past the stone wall near the Irish Brigade monument. That's when the temperature dropped, fast. So cold it felt like the heat was being sucked out of my chest. The flashlight flickered, then cut out completely. I smacked it, shook it, shook it. That's when I heard it screaming, Dozens of them. Not in pain, but in rage. Men yelling, shouting, clashing steel. It was a full-blown battle erupting all around me. Only there weren't no one there. I dropped to my knees in the tall grass, heart racing, eyes tearing from the cold and fear. Then the air lit up, muzzle flashes, phantom gunfire. But the flashes had no source, no soldier, no musket, just light and death, and the smell of black powder so strong it burned my throat. Something moved behind me. I turned, and there he was, a Union officer. Tall, stern, half his face gone, blood down his neck, eyes blazing like coals in a cold stove. He raised his saber and swung. Next thing I know, I'm flat on my back, gasping, arms flailing. But there was nothing there, just wind and silence again, and the feeling that I was being watched, like 1,000 eyes staring through the trees. I scrambled up, ran back toward the visitor center like the devil himself was on my heels. Didn't stop till I was inside, door locked, lights on. I collapsed in the chair, trembling, tried to radio it in, static. Then the radio crackled, just once, and a voice came through. Still here. That night never let go of me. Weeks passed, but the feeling stayed. I couldn't walk the trails without hearing the echoes. The marching, the cries, the pleading. I did some digging after that. Turns out the place where I saw that column of soldiers just south of Little Round Top was where a Confederate unit got caught in crossfire and was completely wiped out. No survivors. And the boy I saw, his name was Jacob, 16. Drummer. His diary's in the archives. Last entry said, "They told me I'm too young to die, but I feel it in the ground." Now I ain't saying I believe in ghosts, but I know what I seen and I know what I still hear time to time when the fog rolls in and the battlefield goes quiet. The ground still moves, still whispers, still bleeds. If you ever walk Gettysburg alone at night, you'll feel it too. You'll hear them. The marching, the drums, the boys who never came home. And if you listen real close, you might hear him say your name. Folks around here whisper, Chickamauga was cursed long before the first bullet flew. The Cherokee called it the River of Death, and I reckon they knew something we didn't. I've walked them woods most my life. First as a boy, then a soldier, now as a ranger. Thought I knew every path, every echo of cannon and bugle. But I was wrong. There's something out there in them shadows, something that never moved on. It was late September when it happened. Storm rolled through the night before, knocked out the power to half the park. So I volunteered for overnight patrol. Make sure no trees were blocking trails, no fences down. I'd done that job 100 times. Only this night, something was waiting for me. I set off near dusk. Sky was hanging low, that gray-green color right before a storm comes back round. My flashlight was flickering even with fresh batteries, and the truck's radio was throwing static. But I figured it was just the air being thick from the weather. My route took me along the Alexander Bridge Trail. The trees were leaning in close like they was trying to hide something. And that old trail, it felt like it didn't want me there. I passed the Snodgrass Hill Monument, stood there a minute just watching the wind ripple through the leaves. Then I heard it. Footsteps, crunching, behind me. I turned quick. Flashlight beam sweeping through the brush. Nothing, just leaves rustling. I kept moving, faster now. Boots pounding the dirt path, hand tight on my flashlight like it could protect me. But that feeling, like eyes was on me, it never let up. I got about halfway between the Lafayette Road and the Brotherton cabin when I saw him. Tall, thin, dressed in gray, standing dead still between two trees just off the path. I stopped. Flashlight shakily lit him up. Confederate uniform, torn, bloody, eyes black as coal. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. And then he stepped forward. I called out, "You all right there, partner?" No answer. Just that slow step. I backed away, heartbeat thundering in my chest, raised my radio to call it in. Dead. Static, cold as a tomb. He took another step and whispered, "It hunts at night." My breath caught. I turned and ran. Didn't look back. Didn't want to know if he was following. I ran until the trees thinned out, until I stumbled into the clearing near the Winfrey field. And that's when the real horror began. The air was thick, heavy like syrup. And all at once, the sounds started. Gunfire. Cannons, men screaming. But the field was empty. I fell to my knees, hands over my ears, but it didn't stop. Through the trees, I saw them, dozens of them. Gray and blue, running, shooting, bleeding and falling, and above it all something. Moved, tall, wrong, creeping just beyond the tree line, like a shadow wearing the shape of a man, but nothing about it was human. Its head tilted too far. Its limbs moved like they was pulled on strings. And wherever it walked, the soldiers stopped, froze, screamed. I saw one try to run, a Union man with half his arm missing. The thing caught him. No sound, no struggle. Just gone. Gone. Like he'd been swallowed. I scrambled back, crawling on all fours till I found my footing. Didn't matter where I ran, the battlefield shifted this time. The trees rearranged themselves, the moon vanished, and I was back where I started, by the Snodgrass Monument. Only now, the stone was bleeding. Yes, bleed. Thick, black-red blood oozing from the names etched in granite, and below it, a pair of boots. Not mine. Caked in mud and blood. I followed the boots up, and there he was again. The soldier. Same black eyes, same whisper. It feeds on memory. I don't know how I got out of those woods. Next thing I remember, I was pounding on the ranger station door, mud up to my knees, pants torn, flashlight gone. They thought I'd had a breakdown. Sent me home for 2 weeks. But I know what I saw. I started digging, looking into what that thing might have been. Found old Cherokee legends. They talked about a creature, not a ghost, but something older, something born in places soaked in death. A Wahya Azgaya, a man-eater spirit drawn to pain, war, and memory. They said it don't kill to feed, it kills to remember, and it haunts those who come too close. Now I know why they called it the River of Death. It ain't the water, it's what waits in the trees. I still work the park, still walk the same trails, but never after dark, and never alone. And if you come to Chickamauga and the air gets real cold, if the woods go too quiet, you best turn back, because it remembers you. And once it does, it don't forget. They say the Battle of Shiloh was the bloodiest 2 days this country had ever seen, until Antietam came along. But no place I've ever set foot feels heavier than that forest where they fought. I've been a ranger at Shiloh for 13 years. Before that, I was military, served my time. I know the sound of fear. I know the look of death. And let me tell you something, friend. Death still lives here. They call that middle stretch of the battlefield the Hornet's Nest, where Union boys held the line all day while Confederate troops hammered them from all sides. Cannons were so thick it sounded like a damn hive of bees, hence the name. I've stood there plenty of times telling visitors what happened, showing them the sunken road, the Duncan Field overlook, all that. But what I don't tell folks is what happened to me one fall night when I stayed too long on patrol. It was early November. Tour season had died down, but we still had a couple local kids causing trouble out in the woods, knocking over signage, stealing relics. So I volunteered for the late patrol. Figured I'd do one more sweep from the bloody pond up through the Hornet's Nest, then call it. Sun was just starting to drop, sky burning orange behind the treetops. I was walking slow, taking in the quiet, too quiet. Birds weren't chirping, no bugs, just dead air. I reached the sunken road and felt a cold wind come through, cut right through my ranger coat. My breath fogged out in front of me, and that's when I saw it. Smoke, thin, blue-gray, drifting low across the trees like a campfire was smoldering. Except we don't allow open flames in the park, and I was the only ranger out there. I stepped closer and the smoke started taking shape. First it twisted into figures, then faces. Then I heard them. Hold the line! Fire! Medic, God, please. They're in the trees. They're in the trees. Suddenly I wasn't standing on a trail no more. I was there. The ground beneath my boots was mud, red, slick with blood. The air thick with powder and sweat, and all around me, soldiers. Blue coats, rifles, faces hollowed out by fear. None of them saw me. They moved around me like I was a ghost. One man dropped right in front of me, screaming, holding his belly in both hands, blood pouring between his fingers. He looked up at me, right into me, and cried out, "Don't let me die here. It hurts." I backed away, tripped over a root or something, fell hard, landed in dead leaves, and just like that, it was gone. No smoke, no soldiers, just the sound of my own breath, heavy and ragged. I scrambled to my feet, heart thundering in my chest. I should have turned back, but something pulled me forward. I walked deeper into the Hornet's Nest, past the place where the Confederates surrounded the Union line. That's when I started hearing the buzzing. not bees. Voices, dozens, hundreds, whispers, chanting, screaming, and then I heard drums. Slow, rhythmic, boom, boom. Each beat rattled my chest like it was coming from inside me. I came into the clearing at Duncan Field, moonlight spilling soft over the grass. Everything felt wrong, flat, too still. And then I saw him standing on the far side of the field, dressed in gray, one arm missing, a saber in his other hand, dragging along the ground. He looked up, eyes white, no pupils, and he said, "It's never over, not for us, not for you." I turned to run, but something stopped me cold. Right in front of me, the ground opened. Not literally, not like a hole, but like my eyes had been peeled back and I was seeing layers of time, stacked on top of each other, soldiers running, fallen, bleeding out in the dirt I was standing on, some of them crawling, reaching for me. One grabbed my boot, and I swear on my father's grave, I felt it, felt his fingers, felt his blood. I kicked loose, fallen back, and that's when I saw her. A woman, walking right down the middle of the field, dressed in black, veil over her face, floating almost, her feet not touching the ground. She stopped in front of me, lifted the veil. No face, just shadow, and two eyes glowing red. She didn't speak, but her mouth moved. And inside my head I heard, "This land remembers, and so will you." I woke up at the ranger station floor, head pounding, coat soaked through with sweat. I'd lost 3 hours. The log said I never checked back in, and my boots were covered in mud. I didn't say nothing for a while, didn't tell nobody. Figured maybe I had a breakdown, hallucination, too much coffee and not enough sleep. But a week later, a visitor stopped me out on tour. Old fella, vet, said he'd been standing out by the hornet's nest near sunset, said he saw a woman in black walking across the grass, said she vanished when he tried to speak to her, and all night he heard drums. Now, I won't go near that field after dark, won't even drive past it. The hornet's nest was hell once, still is. The dead didn't move on. They're stuck there, reliving it over and over. And some nights, if you stand real still, you can hear them whisper, "It ain't over. Not yet." Most folks who visit Vicksburg, they come for the cannons and the monuments. Maybe they stand on the bluffs and take a picture of the Mississippi winding lazy through the trees, and they leave thinking they seen all there is. But they ain't felt what this land remembers. I've been a ranger here going on 17 years, and I'll tell you right now, this place don't sleep. Not really. It just waits. Waits for nightfall. Waits for someone to listen. Waits for the past to crawl back up through the cracks. And one night, I listened too long. It was mid-July, thick and heavy. Air like molasses, mosquitoes like buzzing needles. The kind of night where the darkness don't sit on the woods, it seeps into them. We'd had reports of someone camping out unauthorized near the Shirley House ruins. Some local kids trying to ghost hunt, maybe. So I grabbed my flashlight, hopped in the cart, and headed down Union Avenue. Now, I'd done this 100 times. Knew every bend in the road, every stone monument leaning out just a little too far. But that night, every corner felt wrong. Every tree seemed to lean in just a little more than it ought to, like the whole place was holding its breath. When I reached the Shirley house, the light from my cart flickered and died. Flashlight cut out too, dead cold, brand new battery. So I stood there in the dark, listening. No wind, no bugs, no frogs croaking from the ravines, just silence. And then, a boom. Loud, deep, like a cannon, but distant. Echoed, my gut twisted up something fierce. There hadn't been a live cannon fired in that park in 100 years. I stepped off the path, headed toward the house. The moon broke through just enough for me to see the white frame glowing like a bone in the dark. Then I saw movement. A man, leaning out one of the upstairs windows, couldn't see his face, just the outline. Gray coat, kepi hat, hand reaching for something that wasn't there. I called out, "Park's closed, partner! You need to come down now." But he didn't move, just faded like smoke caught in moonlight. I climbed the porch, pushed the door open, creaked something awful. Inside, the air was heavy, smelled like sulfur and mold and wet wood. I stepped into the parlor, and that's when I heard it, scream below, like boots dragging across dirt and stone. Then came the voices. "Hold the line. We're starving, God help us. Can't bury him fast enough. Don't let him dig us out." I turned toward the sound and realized it wasn't coming from the house. It was under it. There's an old tunnel beneath the Shirley house, collapsed decades ago. But that night, it was open. A black mouth in the earth, breathing cold air. I don't know why I stepped in. I should have turned back, but I couldn't help it. It was like my feet weren't my own. The tunnel was tight, damp, smelled like rot and long-forgotten pain. The walls were carved by hand. You could still see the scrape marks from bayonets and shovels. As I went deeper, the voices grew louder. Men whispering, praying, begging. Then I hit a chamber, open, round, lined with shelves of bones, skulls staring back at me from the dark, and sitting in the middle, a man, blue uniform, chest caved in, eyes wide and alive. He looked straight through me. They said surrendered save us, he croaked. But we're still here, buried, but never gone. I stumbled back, slammed into the wall, the bones began to shift, falling like dominoes, and behind me, a roar, not of wind, not of cave-in, but men, charging, screaming. Suddenly, the chamber was full, soldiers pouring through the tunnel, Union, Confederate, bleeding, crying, screaming. One man passed through me, leaving ice in my lungs. I dropped my flashlight, it shattered on the stone. Then everything went black. When I came to, I was sitting on the Shirley house steps, sun rising, birds singing, my boots were soaked in river mud, there hadn't been rain in days. I didn't speak of it, not right away, but the nightmares started. Every night I heard them. Digging, praying, starving. I started digging through old park records, found a faded map. Turns out there were siege tunnels under the house. Confederate troops dug them trying to survive the shelling. Union soldiers used them to press the line. A whole network of them collapsed in after the surrender. Dozens were buried alive. Some say their ghosts still walk the trenches. Others say they never left the tunnels. A month later, a group of ROTC cadets did a night hike out by the same area. One came back white as a sheet, said he saw a man sitting at the foot of a cannon, mouth moving but no sound. Then he vanished. I asked which cannon. He pointed straight toward the Shirley house line. Vicksburg didn't end with the surrender. The siege never stopped, and if you go walking too far after sundown, you might just find yourself caught in it, like I was. And if you hear digging or see a soldier staring up from the dirt with hollow eyes, don't talk to him, don't follow, and don't go underground. Because once you're in that siege, you don't always make it out. My name's Samuel Hartley. I've been a park ranger down at Cold Hollow Battlefield in Tennessee for near about 17 years now. Ain't much I ain't seen. Thunderstorms rolling in like God's own anger. Mist coming off the hills in the dead of summer. Deer darting across the field in the early morning. But let me tell ya, nothing in all my living years prepared me for the night I heard the dead walk. Now, Cold Hollow ain't one of them parks packed with tourists year-round. Nah, it's small, out of the way. Got an old wooden visitor center, a few cannons lined up for show, and them ragged old trenches still cut into the earth like open wounds. Folks mostly come for the reenactments in October, but the rest of the year, it's quiet. Too quiet sometimes. It all started around early November. Tourist season was drying up, and most of my days was spent walking the trails, checking for downed limbs or vandals. That night, I was on for 2 hours for close. Sky was bruising up real dark, heavy clouds sitting low like they were full of secrets. I parked my truck at the ranger station, grabbed my flashlight, and headed down the Widow's March Trail, a path that wound past the old soldiers' cemetery. The trees were whispering. I remember that. Rustling and shuffling like 1,000 folks murmured just out of sight. I chalked it up to the wind at first, only it wasn't windy. After about 20 minutes, I come up on the north side ridge. That's where one of the bloodiest skirmishes in the valley took place. I stopped a minute, looking out across them open fields where thousands of boys fell, north and south alike, so many years ago. And that's when I heard it. Footsteps. Soft at first. Crunching. Slow through the dead leaves. Too slow to be an animal. Too heavy to be the breeze. I swung my flashlight round, sweeping the trees. Nothing there, I muttered under my breath, but the hair on my arm stood up like soldiers at roll call. Tried to shake it off. Kept walking. But then, voices. Whispering. Low and broken like old men talking in their sleep. I froze up. Heart hammering so loud I thought surely whoever was out there could hear it. Hello, I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. No answer. Just whispering, and the feeling like I was being watched. Now, I ain't no coward. I fought in Iraq back in my younger days. I know fear. I know when something ain't right. I gripped my flashlight tighter and started back toward the main trail. That's when I seen him. Standing by the big oak, the one folks call the hanging tree, was a man, or something shaped like a man. He wore a tattered gray coat, his head slumped low like it was too heavy for his shoulders. Couldn't see his face. Just shadows where a face ought to be. I raised my light, the beam hit him square, and Lord help me. He vanished, melted away into the dark like mist under the morning sun. I stood there for a long minute, flashlight trembling in my hand. Nothing but the empty woods staring back at me. No sign of that man, no sound but the blood pounding in my ears. Now, most folks would have hightailed it back to the station right then, but something, call it duty, call it pride, call it plain old stubbornness, kept my boots planted firm in that dirt. I pressed on, down past the hanging tree toward Shiloh's Hollow, a low spot where the creek runs sluggish and brown. They say after the battle, bodies stacked up down there like cordwood, water running red for days. When I got to the footbridge crossing the hollow, the air got real cold, colder than it had any right to be that time of year. Frost kissed the boards underfoot, and every breath poured out of me like smoke. Midway across, I heard it again. Whispers, this time louder, closer. I stopped, listened. The words was all jumbled, like folks arguing over one another, and plain as day, a voice cut through the mess. Don't leave me here. It was a young voice, a boy sounding no older than 16, pleading, desperate. I swung my light down into the creek bed, heart hammering so loud it filled my whole head. And that's when I saw him, a boy in a tattered Union jacket, standing ankle deep in the mud, looking up at me with wide, hollow eyes. Blood matted his blonde hair, his mouth worked like he was still begging, but no sound come out now. I stumbled back, damn near dropped my light. By the time I steadied myself, he was gone. Vanished. Just ripples in the muddy water where he stood. I made it across that bridge quicker than a scalded dog, tell you what. Didn't even realize I was muttering a prayer till the words was tumbling out my mouth. Figured that was enough haunting for one night. Started making my way back to the ranger station, sticking to the main path, eyes flicking over every tree and shadow. Only it wasn't over, not even close. As I rounded a bend near the old artillery lines, where the cannons still stand like rusty sentinels, I heard something that turned my blood to ice. Drums. Low. Rhythmic. A battle drum, beaten slow and steady, echoing through the trees. I froze up, listened. At first, I thought maybe it was just the wind banging something loose, but nah, it was too steady, too deliberate. Then, layered under the drums, came the clatter of boots, the sharp bark of orders shouted in the night. Form up, hold the line. I could see it. Ghostly figures moving through the mist, bayonets gleaming in the moonlight, uniforms soaked with blood and dirt, faces twisted in fear and rage, and then gunfire. Pop! Pop! The crack of muskets all around me. Instinct kicked in. I dropped flat to the ground, heart jackhammering against the dirt. The battlefield around me had come alive, but not with the living. I crawled behind one of them old cannons, trying to make myself small. Eyes wide, watching the nightmare unfold. Men in gray and blue were clashing, some fallen, some screaming, and all of them ghostly like fog made solid. One soldier, face half gone from a blast, stumbled right past me, dragging a shattered leg behind him. He locked eyes with me, eyes black as coal, and whispered, "You don't belong here." Then he crumpled into the dirt and melted away like smoke. The sounds of battle built to a deafening roar. Cannon fire shook the ground. Screams tore at the air. Muskets cracked like thunder. I covered my ears, squeezing my eyes shut tight. When I opened them again, silence. Just the quiet chirp of night bugs. The mist was gone. The field was empty. I bolted up and ran, full sprint, back to the ranger station. Didn't even stop to check behind me. I burst through the door, slamming it shut, chest heaven, soaking in sweat. For a long minute, I just stood there trying to catch my breath, staring out the window at the dark trees. Nothing. Not a damn thing. I sat down hard in the office chair, wiped a shaky hand over my face. That's when the radio on the desk crackled to life. Static hissed for a second. Then a voice, faint and broken, whispered through. "Form up. Hold the line." I stared at that radio like it was a snake, reached out real slow and yanked the plug out the wall. Didn't matter. The radio kept whispering, kept calling the dead back to war. I didn't sleep that night. Hell, I didn't sleep for a week. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. The boy in the creek, the soldiers in the mist, the man under the hanging tree, their faces twisted and broken, their eyes begging for something I couldn't give. After that night, I thought about quitting, turning in my badge, leaving Cold Hollow behind for good, but something wouldn't let me. Maybe it's duty, maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's respect for the dead who never got to leave that place. I still patrol them trails, still walk the Widow's March at sunset, listening to the whispering trees, and every now and again, when the fog rolls in thick over the fields, when the air gets cold and still, I hear them, marching, fighting, dying all over again, and I tip my hat to them, and I keep walking, because Lord knows some battles never end. You've heard their stories now. 5 rangers, 5 places soaked in memory, and maybe a little something else. They say the dead don't speak, but maybe we just ain't been listening close enough. If you made it this far, I reckon you've got a strong heart, and maybe a soul that's drawn to the things most folks try to forget. So if these stories chilled you, if they made you look over your shoulder or keep a light on tonight, do me a favor and hit that like button. It helps more than you know. And if you want to walk with us again through haunted woods, abandoned fields, and forgotten corners of this world, subscribe to the channel and ring that bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Here at the Haunted Legion, the past is never truly past, and we've only just begun. I'll see y'all next time. Just be careful where you step. Some paths still echo with boots that walked them long ago, and some voices ain't done speaking.